Hi everyone, my name is Liz Archer and I will be presenting my creating project on infographics in specifically the elementary classroom just because that's what I have experience in. But infographics really, as you'll see, can be adapted to any grade level. So without further ado, first of all, before I get into my rationale for choosing infographics, I'd like to talk about what an infographic is. Now some of you may have used these in our courses, previous to this one, but for those of you that don't know, an infographic is a visual tool for displaying data. They often contain charts and graphs and a whole lot of facts all at once. And my rationale for really choosing an infographic is because I very much like the visual display of information. Like I said, it can display a large amount of information all at once. So those lessons that are really heavy on memorization and just fact checking, I really think that infographics can benefit the students with better recall. I also, being a type A personality, love infographics as an organizational tool. Oftentimes in those heavy information laden lessons, students get lost in all of the things that they have to remember, but when you create an infographic with all the information displayed at once, it's easy to navigate. And you'll see what I mean in a minute or two. So what I did for this project was to think back to my 5th grade classroom and what lessons that I think would benefit most from using infographics and try to adapt them with this technology. So my mind immediately went to my science lessons and specifically geology and specifically rock types, because students have a very hard time with memorizing all the different characteristics and examples of rocks within that geology lesson, and they really need to have that knowledge down before they move on to learning the rock cycle. And it just so happens that this unit is right after the start of the school year, after their 4th grade review. So it's really that first 5th grade unit, and I found that a lot of students kind of get lost and they're confused and they're a little bit overwhelmed with all the information that they're hit at and their expectations that have now been raised in 5th grade science. So anyway, I would think that infographics would be a great addition to this unit because, like I said, all of the information on rock types could really benefit from the organization that comes with using infographics, and it may help those students straighten out their facts and about each rock type and be able to differentiate between which characteristics go with which rock type. So the second lesson that I decided to do was math and surveys and graphing. Again, this is just working with data points. When you teach surveys and using data to put into graphs, it's a lot of information all at once. So I thought that, again, infographics having that structure and that visual display might help students not only work with data points, but also, create the graphs that infographics can have. And again, just be able to analyze that huge group of data all at once. And I wanted to mention that I chose both a science and a math lesson just to show the versatility and adaptability that infographics offer in the classroom. Really, all you need is a large group of information. It can be any subject, and infographics can be used. So again, you'll see the examples of what I mean by that. So let's move on. Here is an example of an infographic. It's actually an infographic of infographics. How clever. As you can see, they have different charts and tables and, a little word map, and it's just a pie chart even. They can really be adapted to any sort of group of data and any requirements that really the teacher, feels comfortable with giving the students, or, the students feel comfortable completing. So, like I said, it's really adaptable to any situation. Okay, so starting out, the first lesson, the science lesson on rock types, students will work in groups of 3 to create 3 different infographics on each of the 3 rock types: metamorphic, sedimentary, and igneous rocks. Students will work together using the website PictoChart, which I'll show you in a second. There must be at least 2 images and 1 chart or graph on each infographic created. So let's move over to PictoChart. I found this lesson, or this tool, in a previous class. Had a little experience with it there, so I can tell you from first-hand experience that it's extremely user-friendly. So once you have an account and you log in, they allow you to select, what type of project you're going to do. So for our purposes, we're going to use PictoChart to create an infographic. They have pre-designed templates that students can go in and manipulate themselves. All of these are, able to be edited with their own set of data. So, or students can come and create their own infographic. But let me just choose one to show you what it looks like. So we picked that template, and here we are, ready to edit with any information that we want. Now, the layout of this might not be conducive to, rock types, but just to give you an idea, all you have to do really is click on a block to edit it, and then you can, just edit the text or delete it, or, change around anything you want, really. All the students have to do is, manipulate the template to reflect their own data. So let's get back to the presentation. Technology and resources. All the class really needs is a computer with internet access. Now, in this lesson too, students would need information about the rock types. I suggest that they have already had experience with the different rock types and the information that goes along with it before completing this infographic. It will go a lot smoother. So really all they need is, like I said, the computer with internet access and textbooks or notebooks or note pages, whatever, that have the material on the rock types. Prior skills for teachers, it really doesn't take much. Just knowledge of how to operate PictoChart, which, like I just showed you, is extremely user-friendly, and the subject matter, obviously. Prior skills for students. Prior knowledge of the subject matter, like I said, I think this lesson would be too bogged down if you hadn't already introduced the rock types and, the subsequent facts that go along with that. And really, students just need to be able to operate websites. Like I said, PictoChart is extremely user-friendly, so I think they would pick up on it pretty quickly. So yeah, that's really all they need. The end product for this lesson is 3 different infographics on each rock type for the students' study. The process for this lesson is fairly simple. Students will decide which group member is producing which rock's infographic. Again, that might have to be adjusted depending on the maturity level of your students. You might have to assign it for them if they can't decide, themselves. I'm not sure. Students might fight over a certain rock type. A lot of them like the igneous and volcanoes and all that. But anyway, step 2, students will gather relevant materials. Like I said, the textbooks, the notes, any, information that they need to input into the infographic. Students will log into PictoChart, assuming they already have an account. If they don't, you'll have to go through that with them. Select a template for a new infographic. They can really, there's many, many templates to choose from, so they can, search to their heart's content, really. Or they may also create their own. Some students like that, like to, create their own and have their own organization, all that kind of stuff, which is fine. But just be aware of the level of experience your students have. You might not want to suggest that if it's like their first time using PictoChart. Step 4, students will input relevant information into each infographic, keeping in mind that they must include at least 2 images and 1 chart or graph. Again, that's more for just their experience in PictoChart and the images to help their recall and all that kind of stuff. Students will assist and look over each member's infographic, just a little checks and balances there to ensure accuracy of information and completion of assignment requirements. And then they will print out a copy of each for themselves and one for the teacher to be graded. Again, that's optional. An extension activity on this, which you would already had to have talked about the rock cycle, but if students, are a little higher level, a little more experienced, able to handle more information, they could try to create another infographic on the rock cycle, which again might help strengthen recall. So that's just a little extra maybe. Advantages of the project, again, just the advantage of using an infographic, that it could be an organized and structured visual for study that might work very well for visual learners to strengthen recall. And obviously cooperative learning, they're working in groups of 3 to create each infographic, and that the benefits of cooperative learning are endless. So the disadvantages of the project, that really comes with knowing your students and knowing the approximate levels of skill in website operation, that kind of thing. Like, do you know how much time this is going to take? And that's where the extension activity could come in. If you put an advanced group together, they could work on the next infographic for the rock cycle. Really just, it depends on your students and how many days this lesson would take. Teaching strategies, again, cooperative learning, and the students, when they create an infographic, they're, engaging in the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy. They're manipulating that information. They're creating something new, which, again, I hope would strengthen recall. Transfer potential. This is, one of the big advantages of using PictoChart, that there's no school code needed. Anybody can set up an account. It's free. There are paid accounts, but I think the advantages of just using the free account are, amazing. So also there is a small amount of resources. It's not like you have to, drag all these lesson materials over to, your partner across the way or, the other teachers on the grade level. Really all you need is the computer with internet access. So I think it's really adaptable and transferable in that sense. So lesson 2, surveys and graphs. Students will conduct 10-question surveys on a topic of their choice, pre-approved by the teacher, of course, school-friendly, on at least 10 individuals that do not occupy the classroom. You can change that as well. I just like to do that, so you get a little variance in the data. If everybody asks, who's your favorite One Direction member, you're going to have a lot of the same infographics probably. Students are then asked to take the data they gathered from their survey and create an infographic using the PictoChart website as before. And the students must create at least 2 charts or graphs and use percentages to represent their findings. Now, this is just where, a personal thing where I want the students to practice, they're manipulating their data points into percentages and creating the charts and the graphs just to further those math skills. But again, that's not necessary for every lesson, obviously. After creation of the infographic, students are asked to share their final product with the class and discuss their survey results. Again, not a necessary part of the lesson, but I think it adds, good experiences for the students. Again, technology and resources. This one has a little bit more just because I've asked the students to organize their own data, so however they choose to record that data, paper, pencil, they create an Excel spreadsheet, whatever. That's kind of on their own, but again, it's an extra resource. And then just a computer with internet access, really. Not too heavy on that. Prior skills for teachers, again, just knowledge of operation of PictoChart and subject matter. Prior skills for students. Students must have experience with creating percentages and compiling charts and graphs out of data points. Much like the rock lesson, I wouldn't go into this creating an infographic without the, having already done percentages and having already done graphs. It would be a little too complicated. And just website operation again. The end product of this lesson is survey results, the infographic, and the presentation. Process, step 1, students must decide on a topic and conduct the survey. They must record their answers. They must use the data from their data points from the survey to create the infographic. And they, again, are asked to use 2 charts or graphs and percentages in their infographic. And then upon completion of the infographic, students must share their product with the survey and their survey results with the class. Advantages of the project, besides just infographic advantages are the practicing percentages and the data manipulation of this particular lesson, practicing graphing, and also practicing public speaking. So the disadvantages, reliance on out-of-school time. I know some teachers might be uncomfortable with this, but I like it because, it gives them real-life kind of experience and going out and talking to other people besides their classmates. Again, also another disadvantage is the uncertainty of time. You have to really know your students and how long this might take you. You might have to come up with a different extension for this lesson to occupy those fast learners. Instructional strategies, again, like I said, the real life connection. I think anything that you do that you can relate it to the student's life can help strengthen recall. Also, again, you're creating a product, you're manipulating the data, the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy, and they're getting public speaking experience, which is obviously very important for their future. So I think that's one of the best advantages of this lesson, besides just using the infographics. Again, the transfer potential. No school code needed for PictoChart, so anybody can use it, really. In conclusion, I really think that if you haven't already explored infographics, that you should, because the advantages are, extremely beneficial, and the technology required is very little, so you get a lot of bang for your buck with infographics. And I really honestly believe in its benefits, and I think that it could help visual learners, it could help, organize information, and it can, help the teacher with any sort of lesson. It really is extremely adaptable. So whatever grade level or subject matter you teach, it's a very good way to incorporate technology, and that offers many benefits for the students. So, all right, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you, guys.